I believe we are live. Thank you for joining me tonight, guys. I am working in acrylics. This is on a Frederick's canvas. This is their Blue Label Ultra Smooth canvas, which is good because, you know, lots of detail. I don't have the mic muted, making sure for that. Looks like we're good. How's everyone doing tonight? Where's everyone from? I'm seeing a few of you comment on your locations. I don't know why, it really entertains me how we can all connect, and that sounds super cheesy, but just the fact that because of the internet, some of you are in other areas of the world and can still join tonight. Okay, so the paint that I'm using tonight is Liquitex Basics. I do have a link to everything I'm using below in the video description. The photo that I'm working on comes from wildlifereferencephotos.com. I don't remember if I put that in the video description yet. I need to. But that's where this photo came from. If you just do a search over on their site for wolves, you will come across this guy. What I'm doing tonight is working on getting my underpainting done. I'm going to start glazing this hopefully tomorrow night. So what I want to do is create a lot of detail, start getting all of my fur marks in there. And then when I glaze over it tomorrow, which you will see on next week's video, that will just kind of bring everything together. It softens everything out. So right now my lines can be a bit more harsh than I want my end result to be. You guys are from all over the place. Looking through your locations, which makes the video itself pretty awkward, but you know, I want to see. Oh, Valerie reminded me to hit record. Thank you, Valerie. Valerie is one of our moderators tonight, along with Dead Jester or The Art of Joseph Fincham. Make sure to check out their channels. I have links to both of those in the video description. Valerie does wood burning and Joseph does painting and drawing. You guys are from all over the place. That is awesome. Okay, so the brushes that I'm using tonight, I don't normally make a big deal or talk about the actual brushes I'm using because I use so many, but I'm only using a handful tonight, so I figured I may as well go through them really quickly. First one is a script liner brush. This one is from Hobby Lobby. It's their generic Master's Touch brush. This is a #1. I'm using a Simply Simmons brush. This one is a round #4. The more I use the Simply Simmons brushes, I'm falling more and more in love with those. I've got a rake brush, it's a filbert rake from Low Cornell. And the funny thing is the rake brush, ideally the fur marks or the lines, the bristles are going to be really separated, but mine is in too good of condition, and until I damage or let enough paint dry up near the end of the bristles, it doesn't spread out enough, so I'm not using it as a rake brush. I've also got a brush from, this is the label's not on it. This one is the Soft Grip brush, Royal Soft Grip. It's a filbert. I have no idea. Oh wait, it's a 1/2 inch. It does have the label kind of still on it. Mostly it's been worked out because the print, I've used it so much. And then I'm just using a little cheapy, this one is a Taklon bristle, the gold Taklon. It's a #3 that I'm just blending everything out with. I got one from my area, from Dallas, Texas. Jennifer. Spain. Wow, you are not near me at all. We went from right next door to really, really far away. Okay, so getting started. The paint that I'm using, like I said, Liquitex Basics. I'm only really working with 3 colors. I may add Mars Black, but for now, I'm using a little bit of Ivory Black. I'm using my raw umber and unbleached titanium white. I probably will end up having to add Mars Black to this. Susan Cooper wants to know if I have seen or used the new Fabriano Artistico Extra White paper in the soft press. No, I have not. I don't know that that's going to be one of my favorite ways to go from what that doesn't seem like a surface that I would personally love. You never know. Okay, so getting started on him. You can see I've blocked in a lot of the fur. You can still see my pencil lines. This was drawn in with a White General's charcoal pencil, but I've still got to build up more. And what you're going to see tonight is going to look really harsh, like, wow, he's overly fluffy. I need him to be that way in order for when I start glazing, this to still show through. So none of this is super, super important as far as having the right value, the right color, because I'm using just keeping this in the brown, black, and unbleached titanium white. That keeps everything very simple. So if you're having a hard time painting fur, you have a hard time getting it to look realistic, simplify it. do it just in the single tone like this. Well, it's not totally single tone because I am using the white and the black, but I mean, if you do it like this, I'm not having to worry about color. I will worry about color when I glaze later after I hit the camera. I'll do that when I glaze later on. That's when color will come into play for me. Right now, all I care about is getting my values about where I want them. They don't even have to be exact because I can correct those when I glaze too, but I need to have the fur the right length and going in the right direction and clumped the way that I want them to be. Susan says that paper is supposed to be between the cold and hot press. Yeah, I don't think, I like the hot press, so I don't know that I would like the in between. I may have to try it, but we'll see. Okay, so I am going to start by bringing in some of the highlighted areas. Again, this is the unbleached titanium white. I'm mixing a little bit of water in with my paint so that it's smooth. Now, one way when you're painting with the liner brush, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but see how I've got a big chunk of paint on there? That's not going to work right. That's a good indication that you are not going to get the right, you're not going to get fine lines. What I want to do is use a little bit of water. I don't want so much that it's going to be super runny or super translucent, but I want enough on there that I can mix it in. I just twist the brush into the paint, and you can see how now it's just nice and smooth and everything is together. Oddity Transformation wants to know if I am selling this piece. Yes, I'm sure I will eventually. It'll be on my website. Rachel says, I'm finishing up the monthly group challenge on Patreon, the tulips. When do those need to be finished and submitted? Also, how to submit. You can post it either over on our Facebook group, or you can email them to me, and that email is both the links, both of those is in the post where you got it over on Patreon. You'll have to excuse me. I've got my window open, which is maybe a bad idea because my allergies are not happy about it, but it's so nice out. Although I am now listening to neighbors' dogs bark, which isn't as nice. But anyway, that's how you will submit. For the Patreon group challenges, you don't have a deadline. Submit it when you're done. And if you don't get in the batch for that month, I'll just put you on to the next month's videos. It's not the same as the open group for Facebook or for Google+. For Patreon, because I allow you guys, like there's a ton of rules, but because you guys are able to work from any month, it doesn't really matter if you finish late or by a specific date. Paul says, I heard they changed the Fabriano hot press and it's not as good. I have heard that too, but I haven't experienced it myself because everything that I currently have is the old stuff. I'm waiting. It's actually back ordered. I'm waiting for a new batch from Dick Blick. It's now saying it's not going to be here till May. I ordered in February so that I can try, that one should be a new one since it's back ordered. I'm assuming it'll be new. So I'll be able to give you guys a bit more information as to my opinion on that. Okay, so now I'm going to start coming through here. I started with a base of just that dark raw umber and then just built my highlights and shadows from there. And I'm just going to go through here and slowly build up all these little bits of fur. Like I said, these are going to look too harsh. Not a big deal because once I glaze, you're not going to see a lot of this. Now I have to make sure that these are the right length and that they go the right direction. I don't care that each fur is exact. Those are the things I need to worry about. I also want to watch that a lot of these bits of fur are overlapping each other and clumped and clustered together. Like this one I'm doing right here. See how I kind of made a little cluster of that, almost a sideways V shape? It's not just random individual lines everywhere. You'll end up with something that looks like confetti. Meets Art Gallery says, what do you do if your liner brush gets poofy instead of it being sharp? You buy a new one. If you can't clean it well enough, the reason that's happening is you're getting paint right up here, and that's what's making it do this. Or the other thing that can be happening is if you're leaving your paintbrush in water, you've got your water well, and you just let it set in that cup or whatever your water well is, that will also damage the tips of the brush. Once that happens, just buy a new one. Keep that brush though, because there are certain techniques that poofy liner brush is actually great for, so don't throw it out, but I would say go ahead and get a new one. Looks like I missed a couple of questions here. Oh, Stacy's from Denison. That's pretty close. Denison, Texas. Sunny's Eyes wants to know if powder blender is better than odorless mineral spirits for blending Prismacolor pencils. No. Powder blender is wonderful for oil-based pencils like your polychromos. Not so much. They don't blend. You can use them on wax-based pencils, but you don't get the same results. The wax, it's like it wants to stick to the paper too much and it doesn't want to blend out. I like the wax-based for my final layers, but I've gotten to the point now, I tried it a few times and I just don't like the results I get with using wax-based for the blending portion of working on a powder blender piece. I love wax-based pencils with powder blender pieces, but only for final layers that I'm not going to blend out. If I'm going to blend out, I like oil-based. So if all you're using is polychromos, if it were me, I would go with the odorless mineral spirits. Scrolling up. Rachel says, is Strathmore any good for colored pencil drawings? I used to use some of the Strathmore paper. It depends on the paper. It's not my favorite. None of them are my favorite with Strathmore. They don't have a single paper that would be my first choice. It's kind of a backup, what I used to use for students, because that's what most art supply stores carry. It can be done. It's just not my favorite surface. And the thing is, for me with colored pencil, it is a very slow medium. So if I'm going to spend the time needed to create a piece, if that means I have to spend an extra $2 on a piece of paper, I would rather do that and have the most perfect surface for the techniques that I use than try to save a couple bucks on a project that might take 2 weeks, a week, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever. I mean, depending on how long or how big you, or how long it takes you to finish something and how big the piece is. So I don't really get the, now I'm a huge fan of saving money. I mean, I did that starving artist thing long enough. Trust me, I get it. But when it comes to stuff with art, when it comes to colored pencil, especially when it's such a slow process, that isn't one I like to cheap out on. And while some of the Strathmore papers will work, I don't like them. None of them are my favorites. None of them are a piece that I would personally choose. If given the opportunity or option to work on different papers, that would be one of the last. It's not a terrible paper. It's just not my favorite. And I should say it's not my favorite for the techniques I use. Depending on how you're working, you may absolutely love it. Their colored pencil paper, I hated. Like, passionately hated. Will never use again for colored pencil. I have a review. If you look up Lachri and Strathmore colored pencil paper, it should come up. I did what did I do? A tiger. It was a tiger in colored pencil, and just absolutely hated the paper. So that one I definitely do not recommend. That would be the last colored pencil or paper by Strathmore I would personally use. Well, maybe not the last, but up there. Meets Art Gallery says, what is glazing? Glazing is where you're basically taking paint, you're thinning it down with either a glazing medium or water, so you're making the paint more translucent, and ideally using a translucent color on top of that. But you're making it thin, you're like tinting the color. So I'll be changing the color over this, but you're still going to see all the detail that I painted underneath. And I do have a video, if you look up Lachri glazing grapes, I walk you through exactly what that is and how to do it. Susan says, the tips of my liner brushes always seem to want to curl when I don't leave them in the water, even when I don't leave them in the water. It may have something to do with the type of brush you're using. Why am I getting, I don't want this, go away. Random pop-up covering the chat there for me. It may have to do with the type of liner brush you're using. It may have to do with how you're rinsing. I mean, there's so many factors that could do that it's hard for me to know what's causing that specifically for you. The different paint brushes will hold up differently. I don't know as far as curling. I can't totally answer that without more information. If I saw it, that might help. Marissa L says, I just painted a palette knife painting of a flamingo to take a break from realism. But after seeing this, I want to do a realistic painting. Do you ever take a break from realism? I do, and actually last night, I'll show you guys. I had no intention of ever showing anyone this, but I'll show you because, you know, we're all friends. We had a storm hit last night, like a big storm hit. Tornado sirens, by the way, are the eeriest sound. But I turned off my computer because I was afraid to lose what I was working on. So I'm like, hey, I'll do some sketches in my watercolor or my little sketchbook, which I haven't had time to do. So I just did a quick little, really basic landscape that is not super detailed, but it was just a quick, loose sketch that is not realism. It is not something, I mean, I guess kind of it's realism, it's just not very realistic. I didn't use the greatest skills. I had more fun doing that than I have in anything, actually pretty much since the octopus. I drew the octopus for Smart Art Box you saw on Saturday. I had a ton of fun with that too. I love mixing in, realism is my favorite, but I like to occasionally do something in other styles. I think I don't know, it just makes it seem more fun, and it makes me want to get back to realism more, because sometimes you can get burnt out doing the same thing over and over again. The other thing that I love about mixing or trying other styles is sometimes you'll do something in another style. Let's say you do something abstract and you realize, hey, it would be cool if I mixed this with something realistic, and mix those two styles together that you might not have realized or thought of had you not tried the abstract piece. So I'm a huge fan of artists trying different styles for lots of different reasons. Entertain me. Entertain me, is that spam? I don't know if you're a spammer or if you're an actual person asking about this. I'm pretty sure that it helps artists get more money if people decide to help you. Can one of the moderators check out that person's channel, Entertain Me, and see if they're a real person or if there's somebody who's spamming and should be blocked? And if you're not a spammer, I apologize, but that looks pretty spammy to me. Scrolling down. It looks like Joseph was already commenting on the person, or to the person. Rachel says, what brushes do you use for odorless mineral spirits? My liner brush is consistently, why can't I say that right now? Splaying. I don't actually use liner brushes when I'm working with odorless mineral spirits. I don't need it. I use bigger brushes. Basically, I've got a filbert that's very similar in size to this that I use more often than not when I'm blending with odorless mineral spirits. I don't really find that I need, there's never been a reason where I needed a liner, because with odorless mineral spirits, I can blend over a whole section like this and it's really not going to affect the areas next to it that much. So it's rare I use a small brush. Caitlin wants to know if I prefer canvas or paper. If I'm painting, canvas. If I'm drawing with colored pencil, then paper. Morgan wants to know if I'm planning on glazing the background. I am. I'm thinking orangey browns, like very warm, earthy tones. That's my plan if it doesn't work out, because I don't have a Photoshop version of it, so I really don't know if it's going to look very good. If it doesn't work out, I'm just going to glaze over it until I get something that I like. Gina says, how soon can you use paper that has been gessoed? Well, what are you using it for? If you've gessoed it, that you're going to be using sanded paper or colored pencil over it, like the brush and pencil, let it dry for, I want to say it was about 24 hours. You want to really let it dry because it has to cure in order to be ready for your colored pencil. And I could be wrong on that. I want to say it was 24 hours. It's been a while since I did it, so I don't really remember. If you email, if you're doing it for, which I suspect you are, the powder blender from brush and pencil, contact Aliona at brushandpencil.com and she'll tell you. Maybe it was 12 hours. I don't remember. 2 hours? I could be totally wrong on any of those numbers. I'm just making stuff up now. But if you contact her, she'll let you know. If painting, I have painted right on top of it as soon as it was dry to the touch and never had a problem. Savino says, I'm drawing this flamingo in graphite and I'm having trouble with the feathers. It looks so complicated. What would you do? Chances are what's happening is you're overthinking it. You're looking at the feathers as a whole and thinking, oh my gosh, that is a lot of feathers. Instead, look at one little section. Like here, I mean, instead of the fur, I don't want to look at all of this fur because it's going to be a very similar idea. I'm not looking at all of this fur and going, oh my gosh, there's so much fur. I'm taking one little area and looking at it and going, okay, I can see this needs more highlights, so I'm going to put more highlights here, and I'll work on that little, like 1 square inch before I move on to the next. Don't try to look at all the feathers. Look at one feather at a time and look at it as abstract shapes. Don't look at it and go, okay, I'm painting a feather, because for some reason our brains like to try to help, and they're not helping, and tell us this is how a feather looks, and you end up paying more attention to what your brain is trying to tell you instead of the reference photo. If you can kind of ignore that, turn it upside down if you need to, look at one little area and just copy the abstract shapes that you see on your photo, it will all come together that way. It makes it much less overwhelming. Entertain Me has a bunch of questions, so maybe that was a legitimate question. Well, okay, if you're an actual viewer, then you have to understand where I'm coming from. Your name being Entertain Me, and then you're asking me about, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you're asking about different companies and using different companies that artists make money on for videos. I actually get, and this is just general conversation I'll share with you guys, I get so much spam nonstop from companies who want to use my videos on their platform. Most of which do not make me money, which is kind of shady on its own. Like, why would I do that? Makes no sense. I've got people who contact me constantly about making apps, and while some are legitimate, the majority of them are pretty shady. So I get very kind of jaded where I'm just like, that doesn't look like a real question. So since you had links in that and then that combined with your name, I had to question if you were a legitimate member or viewer. So, oh good. Valerie already talked to you too. So I apologize for any misunderstanding. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but your name combined with that looks a lot like, or combined with your question looks a lot like the questions that I get that are spam. And people will do that. A lot of these spammers will come onto these live streams and try to advertise to people, but hide it in the form of like a question, but you're, you know, go check out this artist type thing. So, you know, we have to check. Meets Art Gallery says, what do you do if you don't know how to do realism, but you're very interested in it? Any tips? You practice. I mean, I wish you could see some, well, you can. If you look at the video that went up on Thursday about is your old work worth more than your newer work, I show a leopard that I painted. And technically, it's still counted as realism. I mean, if the leopard had some serious deformities, I guess would be a good way to put that. He was the one that I did in the early 2000s, I think I painted him. He was one of my first oil paintings, and he was not very good. But you compare that with what I do now, I didn't start out being great at realism, having super realistic looking work. That comes with time and with practice. So if it's something that you're interested in, you're just going to take something, you know, get a good reference photo or watch a tutorial, copy that, do the best that you can, learn what you can from it. Okay, what went wrong? What was not as good about yours as what you were copying? And then try to improve on that the next time. And you just continuously repeat that process and you will improve. It just takes time and practice. Oops. Anthony says, 2 questions. Any tips on saving money while buying art supplies? And have you tried acrylic gouache? All I've heard is it acts like acrylic and is matte and takes about 24 hours to dry. I don't know about the 24 hours to dry part. It seemed to dry pretty instantly. I mean, just like acrylics would for me. So I'm not sure about that. I'm not an expert on it. I've only used it a couple of times and not for any like serious projects. But yeah, acrylic gouache, it photographs. Anytime you've got the matte finish, and it's one of the things I like so much about painting things in acrylic, they're easier to photograph quite often than oil paintings because oils just naturally have that sheen to them. So the gouache, that's one of the things that's so nice about gouache is that they just photograph beautifully. So illustrators have throughout time, you know, history have been using those. Well, when that was a bigger thing, we used them a lot. Now, as for excuse me, allergies. As for, let's see how many times I can use that excuse tonight. What, bad painting? It's allergies. But as for saving money on art supplies, watch for sales. I don't know where you're located, but here in the US, like if you've got a Hobby Lobby, you can go, they've got sales all the time. Now, one thing I will say, be aware of what different companies charge. Just because a company says, hey, we've got a 70% off coupon, that does not mean you're actually saving money. A lot of those companies that do that, their prices are so outrageous and so much more than every other art supplier out there. There have been several I've seen recently about that. So know what other places charge. I usually get some of the best deals at dickblick.com. I buy a lot of stuff online, but if you've got a Hobby Lobby locally, I will say they've got great prices more often than not. They're very competitive with Dick Blick. And when you use a 40% coupon, you can save a lot of money. So like when I've had students, or even I did this, when I wanted to get more oil paints a couple of years ago, I decided I wanted to switch from using one type of oil paint into another. And so every Friday when I would go in there to teach my class, I would pick up one tube of oil, one expensive tube of oil that I normally wouldn't spend $20 on a tube of oil paint or wouldn't have had that, and used a 40% coupon on that one tube. And I slowly built up my collection that way. That's definitely one way you can go, but you've got to be aware of what places charge. Like sometimes you can go to Amazon and get great deals, and you'll go to Amazon 2 days later, the same item, and it's now double the price. Be very aware of the supplies that you're interested in. Like with Amazon, I put everything in my cart and I leave it there, and you'll see when the price changes, or not in my cart, in my wish list. I have a wish list for stuff that I want there. That's a good way to save, but just being aware, I think, of how much something costs. Don't be fooled by the idea of, oh, 70% off. If a company's giving you 70% off or 3 canvases for the price of one, that tells you they're overpriced. Their base price, never pay full price at those places. But there's some pretty shady stuff I've seen companies do compared to what I know those items actually cost and what retail is. Let's see. Scrolling back up. Where Morgan says you can use spirits on an acrylic painting. If I said that, I didn't mean it. I meant odorless mineral spirits on colored pencil. So I may have just misspoken there. Okay, I think I'm caught up with those questions. So let's scroll down and see what other ones. Sniper Wiper says, is it possible to work over black gesso with powder blender? Absolutely. Because, and especially if you're on either sanded paper, but black gesso, you would be on your gessoed paper. There's so much tooth, and that pencil sticks to it so well that it comes out being much, much more opaque than working on, I mean, even with the white polychromos, which is not a super opaque. I've never liked that pencil until I started working on sanded paper and gessoed paper with the powder blender. It comes out so much more opaque than it would if you just worked on like black paper. Marjorie says, I signed on too late to see the beginning. Will this be available on your Patreon site later to view? It will be. It should be uploaded on Tuesday. That's normally the day my Patreon videos go live, unless occasionally something happens and I forget and it doesn't go up until Wednesday morning. But I try not to let that happen too often. Dennis says, what would you use to seal pastels? I tried hairspray and it created dark spots and did not seal very well at all. Okay, a couple of things. One, I'm not a pastel artist, so I can't tell you what the best product is. I'm hoping somebody in the comments hopefully can answer you because other people work with pastels more. What I will tell you, do not use hairspray on your artwork. It is not archival. And I see a lot where people are like, well, my teacher said he'd been using it for 50 years and everything was great. Yeah, well, they change formulas. Those are not intended for artwork. They're not testing how archival it is. They're not testing if it's going to yellow over time, if it's going to crystallize and flake off, which I've seen hairspray do. They're not testing for those things because that's not what it's intended for. What hairspray is intended for is keeping my hair in a ponytail for a few hours. That's about it. It is not intended to keep something in place for 100 years. So you're running into some serious archival issues there. Do not use hairspray on your artwork. You're just running some really serious risks. And I know there are teachers all over the place who tell you, oh, no, it works fine. It's great. Well, maybe if it worked for you, it was great because it was a different formula. You have no idea when any of these companies change their formulations, which they do all the time. And a lot of them are required by law just to stay up to date with certain standards like environmental things and different things they'll change. So they may not even be the same formulation. So even if something worked great 50 years ago, doesn't mean it's the same thing now. But anyway, point is, look into that and hopefully someone can answer you in the comments. Some pastel sprays that they recommend. Hairspray, definitely not one of them. John Paul says, your artwork based on photo references are phenomenal. I was wondering, do you work from life or go outdoor landscape painting? It would be really cool to see how you approach that. You know, I don't like painting outdoors. I used to do that when I lived in California when I was younger. I went a couple of times to the beach. I'm sure you guys are not going to be surprised by this bit of information. I sunburn really easily. Vampires don't go in the sun for a good reason. But, no, I mean, I don't like to be in the sun and then you get bugs and the wind is constantly blowing your artwork over and you're chasing things down that just got blown away. And then the easel fell over while you were chasing that thing down. I might be speaking from personal experience. It wasn't the most enjoyable experience for me. I really like sitting in my studio where the environment is exactly how I want. I occasionally get a fungus gnat that comes through the screen, but I can have the screen open and feel like I'm kind of outside, but without the drama of wind and bugs and all of that. So I'm not one who personally really enjoys that. So no, that's not something that you will often see me do, or if at all. Painting landscapes, I would love to do. Now, painting from life, I have done that before when I've drawn one of my dogs. I did a sketch of when she was sleeping because she was holding still long enough I could actually draw that. But normally I prefer reference photos. It just works well for how I like to work. Brandy says, would you ever consider yourself to be at the peak of your career as an artist, or do you believe yourself to still be developing a style and business? I don't know that I will ever hit a point where I hope I never hit a point where I feel I'm at my peak. I mean, I'm happy with where I'm at right now, but not content to forever stay here, if that makes sense. Both for skill, for my business, for everything. I want to see everything grow. If I hit a point where I'm like, okay, this is it, I have made it, that seems sad to me. I definitely don't, I hope to not ever feel that way. Whoops. I just scrolled past one. Come back. Sorry about the pause here. This is always a problem where I scroll past a bunch of questions. Apparently a bunch. Oh, entertain me is definitely a real person, not a spammer. That's a funny misunderstanding. Like, you can see how that would happen with that name and then a question that would typically... That's funny. That makes me laugh. You have entertained me, sir. Meets Art Gallery says, would the technique that you are using right now work for a bird? Absolutely. Glazing works for every single thing. There's nothing I can think of where glazing isn't a good technique. And the thing that I like so much about it is I think it takes a lot of the pressure off. I don't care what color I'm using right now. I'm just going over creating fur marks with unbleached titanium white everywhere. That's the only thing I care about, is getting the fur going in the right direction, being the right length, that sort of thing. And it lets me work very fast. I think that this is a very quick way to work too, and especially with acrylics because they're going to dry so quickly. When I glaze over it, I can glaze on top of glaze. It's a very fast way to get something that looks very realistic. And the techniques I'm using will also work in oil paint. You just have to let it dry in between. Funny Dude says, I'm having trouble seeing color in terms of layers. Glazing red over yellow versus mixing orange, for example. Any tips? I usually will mix whichever color I want separately and then adjust from there. That'll be my base layer. So like you're saying red over orange or red over yellow versus orange. I would personally go with orange. Well, it depends on what it is. Let's change my advice because there's too many factors in there. Practice. Try it on a separate piece of paper. Have a piece of canvas pad next to you and see what happens when you layer one over the other versus the other way around versus orange, and see which effect you like better, because it's going to be a slightly different result each time. And the only way I think that you're really going to get to the point where you know which one to go with and which one you like is to try it out. You've got to experience it. You can read all the books you want, all the color theory books, all that, and you may pick up stuff here and there, but all of that is going to make much more sense to you once you've experienced it, once you've actually tried it, and then you read those tips in the book and go, oh, that's why that happened. Now it'll make sense. It'll stick better. So I definitely recommend practice. Try it and see what happens. Will be one of the best ways for you to learn fast. Kendra says, wanting to start painting, do you think acrylic painting or watercolors would be a good start for a beginner? Either way, whichever you're interested in, I would say look up artwork done in both and see which one appeals to you more. I mean, I've seen watercolor artists who created things so realistic you would never know they didn't have that typical watercolor style. But look at both of them and see which one is more appealing to you. I don't know that one's better than the other. I don't think that any medium is necessarily better than another medium to start with. Start with where you're most interested, because I think you're going to learn a lot faster. And I've seen that with students. If a student came in and their mom was like, nope, you're only working in graphite, but that student was super interested in color, they're not going to learn as fast as they would have if the mom would have let them start with color. I've seen this over and over again through the years. So which I would say, don't go based on you think one's going to be easier than the other. They're not. They're both difficult mediums to get the hang of. Worth the trouble, but they're not super, super easy. No medium's super easy. But look at samples of both work and decide which one appeals to you more. And then that would be the choice I would go with. Paul says, hopefully you will do animal fur and colored pencil at some point. I actually have. I have one in a wolf. So you can see how I've done that. I've done animal fur in a lot. Not in a live stream yet. I'll have to do that in the future. But I do have videos up of those. Sunny's Eyes, excuse me, wants to know if colored pencil or the colored pencil texture spray will work for Prismacolors. You know, I've not tried it. Contact Aliona over at brushandpencil.com. If you go to her website, or even I think you can probably contact her on Facebook, but ask her. I'm sure she's tried it. I don't really use Prismacolor, so it's not one that I've tested out, but ask her. She'll be able to let you know. Mona wants to know if I have tried acrylic gouache. I have. I used it with a Smart Art box recently. It was okay. I liked it, but I like my acrylics, so like I didn't see a reason for me to switch from one to the other. I just scrolled past way too many questions. Here we go. Mara Black says, Is it that we work differently because your underpainting looks done to me? Now it's time for the actual definitions. Or is it because you were glazing a lot? I'm not sure I understand your question. Is it work that we work differently because your underpainting looks done? Well, I think I understand now. An underpainting can be anything you want. For me, I want a lot more detail in this than what I've currently got. Everything's very loose. And I could leave this as a completed, you know, say that's enough detail. I like more detail. And I'm going to be doing so many translucent glazes that I can make that section, the glazing portion, can go quickly. I mean, I'll have it done in an hour, maybe two. Have all of the glazing I need done. As long as I've got a ton, like all the detail I want, if I do it now, then the glazing portion is just going to be tinting color, super easy. Don't worry about details. So that's, there's different ways to do it. You know, one thing I need to fix really quick that I forgot, well, I'll leave it. I have, and the moderators may have to deal with this. I forgot to change my filter, so you may have more comments filtered than what should be. So I apologize for that. I just clicked that I forgot to do that and would actually kind of be a pain to do it right now. So apologize to the moderators for that. Storm Cat says, I recently did your owl with bubble leaves. You said it could be glazed if you wanted for the owl in color. Any reason you used browns with the wolf instead of just black and white and then glaze? The wolf is mainly going to be brown tones, and it just made... you could do it either way, but in this case I wanted a warmer color, and brown is going to lean more towards that warmer shade than I want, whereas the black and white is going to have a cooler shade than what I'm going for. Let's say I was drawing a wolf in snow, then I would probably just go with black and white then. Good question though. Oddity Transformation says, are you going to incorporate some type of Lachri glow in this piece? Lachri glow? I don't know what that is. I mean, I'll have this area be kind of back, or I don't want to say backlit, but I want this to be very bold here. I don't know what a Lachri glow is, so I don't know how to answer that completely. I like the sound of it though. Skull Gamer says, you said you don't have to be super detailed because you would just glaze over, but would there ever be a situation where that wouldn't work? Well, it depends on the type of glaze. I think if you're using more opaque colors to glaze, you're still going to be somewhat translucent, but you could cover up too much of your detailing. But because of the colors that I'm going to use here, that won't be a problem. I mean, I don't know. I can't think of any situation. There's so many different ways to get to the same end that I can't say that they're... That's a hard one to answer because that's it, that there are just so many different ways to get to the same end result. I can't think of anything off the top of my head where it wouldn't work, but every time I come up with like this is always the case in this situation, I find like 2 weeks later I come up across something that is actually not true or that I was wrong on. So I don't want to say no, there's never going to be a time where that wouldn't work, but I can't think of one. Mara says, it looks like there's a person in his ear. You're right, it totally does. And actually, you can't really see it on screen, but off to the side, there's someone pointed out on Instagram. I've got 2 eyes and a mouth that I'm going to have to get rid of in the background. I'm glad you guys noticed these things because I didn't. Oops, I just scrolled way too far again. Lost where my questions were. Scrolling. Let's see. Maria says, titanium white from brush and pencil doesn't ship to my country. Would oil painting stick over colored pencil? Should I buy the titanium white pigment and mix it with something? The stuff that you mix on your own is not the same. I do know that because I've had people ask that before, and I contacted Aliona, and there's science that I don't understand and just not the same. The pigment and the size, and there's a whole thing. So that I can answer is not the same. As far as what country you're in, where are you at? Because they're going to be they're going to be within the next month or so in Australia. That's like on its way to you guys right now. You can get it in the UK from, where is that? Jackson's Art Supplies, and then Delta Art in Canada. Most places can get it. Ferret Art Studio says, if you had issues with your friends asking to see you and get annoyed when you say no, how do you tell them your art time is important to you? I have my best friend who we used to text nonstop. She has a lot more free time than I do. And unfortunately, I know she gets frustrated that I don't have time to text as much, but she understands too. I mean, to me, if somebody can't understand that this is my job and this is what I do and that's an issue for them, then that's, I don't know, that's kind of a needy, weird relationship that I don't have interest in. I've never been one. I mean, that's one of the things that always has worked out so well with my husband. Both of us can be in a completely different room and hardly talk to each other in a day, not because we dislike each other, just because we're both doing our own thing, and that works for us. I don't deal well with people getting really possessive of me. I've had that happen in the past, and it gets awkward, and I usually stop contacting them. I don't like that needy. That doesn't work. I have another friend who lives here locally who, she understands that I'm busy. She's a great friend and she gets it. So she's not getting mad at me because I don't talk to her. I mean, I get the, the occasional text that she misses me and I feel guilty, but, she understands. And like I said, she's a good friend. Someone to me who gets super clingy and wants all my attention, that's not a friend that I really want. So I may be not the friendliest person there. Let's see. Meets Art Gallery says, is it worth it to practice with acrylics in a sketchbook? And what is a canvas pad? If you gesso your paper, then yeah, you can work in a canvas pad there. To me, that's too much trouble. I don't like working that way, but I do know, like Lena Dania, she will do that. She'll actually gesso the sketchbook and oil paint in it. And she's got just some really cool sketches and quick paintings that way. For me, that's more trouble than I want to do. So I can't say that I never will, because I'm starting to really like my one little sketchbook. So maybe the day will come where I think that's fun too. Probably not. You never know though. So as far as if it's worth it, I think it depends on you. For me, I don't like having to prep stuff. It drives me crazy to, like, one of the reasons that I'm so in love now and really work more with the sanded paper for colored pencil instead of gessoing my own paper. I don't like the process of gessoing it. I just want to grab my paper and start the project. I don't have time to keep spending prepping stuff. So it's just, I think, personal preference there. But the canvas pad, you can get, Fredericks makes one, and it's literally canvas in a pad. It's a canvas that's been gessoed and primed, and you can just paint right on it. Uh-oh, you guys it looks like someone's starting to name the wolf, or calling for it to be named. Gio wants to know what other mediums I have dabbed in. What kinds of things do you keep in your sketchbook? And have you ever thought of posting some of that stuff? Well, the sketchbooks I've never been really good at keeping up with. I used to when I was younger, but now that I'm constantly producing completed paintings, I don't do a whole lot in the sketchbooks. So that's kind of a new, I don't really have much to show. I've only got a couple pieces so far. And then the stuff I've done with Smart Art Box, but I've never filled any of those sketchbooks yet. I need to. But other mediums I have dabbled in pretty much everything you've seen here, I think. Charcoal, I used to use charcoal more. Trying to think other things that you guys aren't aware of. I mean, there's oil, acrylic, colored pencil, charcoal, airbrush. I did used to use pastels and oil pastels. Too messy for me for the pastels, and the oil pastels just weren't my favorite compared to some of these other mediums that I like so much. But yeah, I mean, anything I do, I eventually share with you guys. There's not much that I'm not a secretive person at all. And I don't get embarrassed easy. So even if I do something, I'm like, wow, that's terrible. Let's show everybody, because apparently that's what you do with things that normal people would be embarrassed about. At least in my world. Dominic just named the wolf Elvis. Why? That's funny. Whoops, just scrolled too far. There's some questions I've missed. Oh, I missed a bunch of them. Scrolling. How did I miss this many? Oh, Kaneho's back. Kaneho, I'm already married. There are laws against getting married twice. Mara wants to know if I use a 2-inch brush for the background to give it that look. Are you going to leave it that way, or I am going to glaze it, and I used, not that one, I used this one, the Simply Simmons. This is the number 50 flat, extra large brush, and I love that one. That was a good buy. Barbara Lovelace says, good evening. Hi, Barbara. Anthony Cassidy says, I was watching one of your colored pencil comparisons. You mentioned layering gray over your colors with the Prismacolor. You mentioned layering gray over your colors with the Prismacolors. Are there any other colors you would layer to mute the color? If you need to mute a color, mix it with its complementary color. So let's say your greens are just too fluorescent, mix a reddish tone over that, and that will neutralize it. So the complementary colors, you've got yellow and purple, red and green would be complementary, and orange and blue. My brain shut down there for a minute. But if you mix a color with its complementary color, that is going to mute it and give you a much more natural tone. Ferret Art Studio says, have you had issues with your friends asking... Oh, wait, that was the question I got before. Already did that one. Kelly wants to know if I've gotten the Graphite Tint blocks yet. I have not. I actually need to contact them because I want to get that, and I guess they've got some really good pencil sharpeners. I was using one when I demoed for Derwent at the NATMA. I'm throwing out letters that are probably wrong. But when I demoed, I used another one of their sharpeners that I actually liked, and I need to get some of their polycolors so that I can review those. So I need to get a hold of them about that. So no, I have not. That was a really long answer to say no. Caddy May, I totally misread that for a minute, thought it was my sister. I was like, wow, she doesn't even watch my videos. That would be weird. Not that sister anyway. My sister's name is Christy May. That kind of weirded me out when I glanced at that. Caddy May says, I paint with acrylics. When I am finished a painting and I rub my hand over the canvas, it is very smooth. You can't feel the strokes of the paint. Is this just how acrylics are? Well, it's how you're painting with them. If you use a thicker canvas or a thicker paint like Liquitex Heavy Body, you can paint that on really, really thick and have texture if you want it. For me, I don't want texture. So that is a normal thing for my paintings. It just depends on how you're laying the paint down. So here, there's no texture on mine at all. Oh, I've got a question that just came through on my email for someone who can't see the comment feed. Let's just pull that up really quick and see if that's, maybe they included a question. Oh, I've got Kaneho also asking me to marry him. Will you marry me, fatty? That is the best proposal ever. Let's see, where did that question just go? Janet says, wants to know if I will be at Art Bloom in McKinney. I will not be. Do I participate in the local art fairs? No, I do not. I've not found them to be worth my time, honestly. There are a lot of, for at least my experience in the past, they are a lot of work. I'm not saying don't do it. They're fun. If you've got the time and you're free, go do it. They're a blast to be a part of. For me, I don't have the time, and when I did participate, I didn't generally make enough money to pay for the booth. It depends on the art fair, though, because there are some art fairs and art shows that you can get involved in that you will have great, get great sales, and you'll go to other ones and you might sell a single postcard for $2. So in that case, it wasn't even worth my gas to get there. It depends on the art show, but I don't generally. I am going to be in the, let's see, I'm going to, I have no clue if you can see me. Janet is still commenting over here. I hope you're watching this and can hear what I'm saying. But I'm going to be at Frisco. Let me see what day that is. The Frisco, I'm going to announce this to everybody. I've got one of my paintings, actually the hummingbirds on the leaves with the berries. That one is going to be displayed at the Frisco City Hall or the Frisco Municipal Center. That will be there up until, I think, September. And when is the reception for that? Let's find out. It's called Art in the Atrium. And I will be at that, oops, I can't spell. I think I just spelled that wrong. It's Monday. Yes, that is what I meant. Thank you for fixing that. Monday, come on. The reception is Monday, April 17th from 6 to 8 p.m. So I'm going to be stopping by then there. I'm not sure what time I'm going to be there, but my plan is to stop by. So Monday, September 18th. No, sorry, April 18th. Words are so hard. Wait, that doesn't mean Monday. Hold on. Monday. Oh, yeah. Monday, April 17th. Is that right? Yeah, Monday, April 17th. Wow, that was difficult. Monday, April 17th, I will be at the Frisco Municipal Center or their City Hall, whatever you want to call it, to go to that reception. But that's the only one that I've got coming up soon. Let's see. JPC 13 Art is glad I finally see the faces. Well, these ones you can't miss. These ones are pretty obvious. You guys made up the other ones. On actually the colored pencil piece that I will have displayed over at the Frisco City Hall will be the one that you guys saw the faces in. Carolyn says, when it comes to selling prints, approximately, what is a good percentage to make off them as a profit? There's no way I can answer that for you. Everyone's going to be different. For me, for Fine Art America, they have their recommended, make a markup of $5. I'm like, yeah, no, it's going to be $20 or $30, depending on the size. So it depends. It depends on who you are, how much of a demand there is for what you're creating. There's no way for me to say, this is how much your percentage should be. There's no more way that I could do that than tell you how much to sell your paintings for. Definitely depends on the artist themselves. Oddity Transformation says, I was watching a bunch of your videos and you said you wanted to incorporate more of a glow in your paintings, just like the bird on the branch of the live stream. So I just named it the Lachri glow. That's funny. Yeah, no, so hopefully I will have the Lachri glow and the wolf by the end of this. And that's one of the things that's so great with glazing. I think that you get more of that glow because of the way that the light refracts through each layer. You have a layer of color and then another layer of color and another layer of color, and the light kind of bounces through all those layers and you get what to me looks kind of like a glow. Jennifer says, what are your thoughts on water mixable oil paints? I don't like them. And it's funny because I actually made a video talking about them and I angered so many people because in my mind, they're just not the same. They don't feel the same as regular oils. I don't like them. They feel like a different medium. That is me. That is my opinion on them. And people disagreed and were like angry because they disagreed. And it's like, I don't have to feel the same about every medium that you guys do. Some people love different mediums that I don't. Some people say that pastels aren't messy. I think they are. It was so funny because there were so many more angry comments about that than normal. But I don't like them. I don't like how I like my regular oils. I've used them for so many years and I'm just used to the feel, and that's what I personally like. Now, that's not to say that you can't create absolutely wonderful, beautiful artwork with the water mixable oils. I have seen artwork done with those that were stunning, just like regular oils. So it's not that your end result can't look the same. I mean, I can take 3 different mediums and make the end result look pretty similar. So that's not the issue there. I don't like how they feel and how they layer. They just weren't my favorites at all. Whoops. When I get towards the bottom of questions, it scrolls and I lose a ton of them, which keeps happening. It's driving me crazy. Oh man, it scrolled way too far. Hold on for 1 second. Sorry about this pause here. Oh, you guys are naming the wolf Elvis because Elvis is dancing in his ears. Wow. Noah is from Vietnam. I didn't know that. Which is funny because I see Noah comment all the time. I don't know why. I just assume. You know how you assume like certain people will comment and you're like, okay, you're from the US. Okay, you're from the UK because certain words that you use. I just always thought Noah was from the US. Okay, now I'm getting caught up. Barbara says, I'm normally excited to dive right into a new medium, studying, doing exercises, whatever it may be. For some reason, the powder blender is intimidating me. Did you feel similar? I did, and enough so that before I ever started, I contacted Aliona and then fangirled out because I'm like, oh my gosh, the author of Brush and Pencil, the author of the Colored Pencil Bible is talking to me because I'm a huge fan of that book. But I contacted her and I was like, okay, so I want to try your product. I've seen the results that you get. So I know that I know that it works. My concern is I've been using colored pencil for so long. In my mind, I work a certain way. And I don't want to try your product, completely screw up because of user error, and then give it a bad review, all because I didn't know what I was doing. Would you be willing to walk me through it? And she's like, absolutely. And she does this for everybody. If you guys have questions, contact her. She answers everyone's questions. She's so great. I don't know how she does it or how she has time for that. But She does. So, ideally, ask her a question on Facebook or somewhere where other artists can see the question. Maybe that'll help her out, you know, help other artists too to see what that answer is. But anyway, yeah, I was definitely intimidated by it. And it was even worse because my first project, I tried working on Fabriano Artistico and I just sprayed it a bunch of time with a texture fixative thinking that would seal it down enough. It didn't at all. And it didn't work and it wasn't blending well. And I was just like, oh, I don't like this. It's terrible. I sent her a photo of it and she was like, yeah, you're doing it wrong. Not in so many words. She was actually like so beating around the bush as far as like, well, you can do this and this is why this is happening and trying to explain it. And I'm like, Aliona, just tell me it's bad. I know it's bad. I need to know how to fix it from here. Don't try, you know, it was definitely funny how nice she was trying to be about it without saying, wow, that's terrible. You're doing it wrong. But I was definitely doing it wrong. So once I went ahead and tried it on gessoed paper and on sanded paper, it took me a while to really get the hang of it because it's a different medium. You know, it's very different than how we've worked with colored pencil in the past. It's a very, very different way of blending. And I was definitely kind of like, okay, I know it can be done. I've seen her do it, but my brain is not capturing how this works. So I know what you're talking about, and it's going to take a few projects. I would say plan on your first couple of projects not being very good, and I think that was the thing that was so hard for me is I've got to where I'm really comfortable with colored pencil. I can make it do what I want it to do, and when I tried using powder blender, suddenly I was terrible at colored pencil, and it was like, wow, this is making it worse. I had to do a couple of projects before I realized, okay, this is how I need to work on this different. This is how I need to adjust my thinking on how to layer, on how to do this or that, and now that I did that after a couple projects, I realized right away that, you know, after the first project where it started to work with Elio to help me out, I realized I would like it, but there was a bit of a learning curve there. It takes some practice. So I think the first couple, I expected my work to be just as good as my odorless mineral spirits. And if I would have looked at it as expecting it not to be as good, I think I wouldn't have been as intimidated. I think if you expect to just play with it, practice, you know, do some clouds in a sky where if it's not perfect, it still looks good. I think that if I were to redo it and start from scratch, that probably would have been my first project with it. But now that I've gotten the hang of it, that stuff is priceless. I love working in that stuff. Okay, let's see. Breshette Studios wants to know if I ever use my sketchbooks to plan out a painting. I used to, and I'll try to remember to pull it out next week because I have the finished painting that I had printed on a postcard with the original sketch in one of those sketchbooks, but I don't want to take the time to go find it right now. I'll try to have it for next week's live stream and share with you guys. But I used to do that all the time, and then I got to where, because I have the Note phone, I have the 5, mine didn't catch on fire, but I can do a lot of the sketching and planning that way, and even more so now, I use Photoshop to design a lot of things. I find that I can get stuff done quicker that way, but it depends on the type of thing that I'm trying to do. If it's something that I don't have a lot of reference photos for, then the sketchbooks I think are an easier way. JPC13 Art says, I think the wolf looks more like Dante. Kimberly says, Wednesday night at the Dickerson house, hanging out with the kiddo and Lachri painting my own wolf. Good timing. That's awesome. That's funny. Your name is actually similar to my maiden name was Dick Imson. Very close. There's a plane going by that I'm pretty sure you can all hear right now. Olivia says hi. Hi, Olivia. Sarah says, when working with the pouring medium, how would a cheap canvas take it? I don't know. I think with a pouring medium, you're better off with a heavy weight canvas. So even like let's say this canvas, this would not be my first choice for the pouring medium because it's a thinner canvas, it has a finer weave, and you're going to have more of the pouring medium the weight of it could kind of sag in the center a little bit. I like the heavier weight canvas like the Frederick's Frederick's Convexo canvases, that one, or I've got a couple of other heavier weight canvases that I've saved over the years, and I thought I would gesso them to sand them down. I got them on sale, and I kept them all this time. I'm going to use those for the pouring medium. The canvas is heavier, so it handles that better. But cheap canvases, if it's a very lightweight, probably not ideal. It's going to depend on the canvas and how tight it is. If it's at all loose, that's going to be a problem because that pouring medium is going to settle into where that canvas is, or the center there. Katie May says, thanks so much. It's so nice I can have texture or not if I want it. Palav says, can you please give me tips on how to make skin in graphite. I've used graphite powder, H pencils, and brushes, but I never get the smooth skin. Can you please do a tutorial maybe? I've got a few older ones that you can watch. I'll have to do a portrait in graphite sometime in the near future. Tips? I'm trying to think of just random tips that might help you out with that. Your blending, I use blending tools, blending cloths. Those I really like. That is usually what I use to get the smoother skin through on large, like cheeks and stuff like that. But don't feel like everything needs to be perfectly smooth either. If you go too smooth, your skin ends up looking like plastic. So sometimes the texture that you have showing through with the paper can be a good thing. You can use that to your advantage. Anthony says, when I layer complementary colors and colored pencils, it's still too vibrant. Anything else you would layer? You can add white on it to mute it, but that's going to lighten it. That'll be a little bit different. Play with different things. You can try putting a dark color down first and other colors on top. Better yet, get more colored pencils. If the colored pencils you have are that vibrant, if it's that big of a problem for you, then you probably don't have enough colors. That's not really a problem that I find myself ever running into, but I've also got the full sets of all the pencils I use. Noah wants to know if I have started my Murloc painting yet. Not yet. I need to because I really want him on my own wall. Noah wants to know if I've told you my secret commission yet. Sort of. The commission was that I got to design or paint the covers for the new Inktense boxes that are coming out. I cannot show you the image yet. They're not until they actually go live. But I can tell you that that is what that secret commission was. And I'm really excited about it. I got to see them printed when I did that demonstration for them last month. Or I guess that was technically this month still. Eric Draws says, what a nice clownfish I am painting. Oh, did I probably copied and pasted the wrong description somewhere. I get mixed up. I have too many things that I'm doing. Is it in the description wrong? I copied and pasted... I don't see it. I don't know where Eric did I put that it was a clownfish, because I want to go fix wherever I wrote that down later on. I copy and paste so much and I end up messing that up all the time. Brianna, am I saying that right? Illustration says, I think you may have mentioned in a video a while back that you took AP Studio Art. I could be wrong though. Did you? If it was, what was your experience like? So in my senior year in high school, they had an AP Studio Art class where they just basically, I had to show them the work that I had already, that I already knew how to paint and draw and shade, that I didn't need lessons on that. And for me, it's going to depend on the teacher, but for me, what that class was, they gave us an assignment like, paint something transparent. And the funny thing is, almost every single student, I'm pretty sure every single student in that class painted glasses and bottles and jars and stuff. Not me. I painted translucent tigers. Because I'm weird. And then they had like one assignment. What was another one? I think it was a kind of a free-for-all, and I did a collage of different silhouettes. And it was funny because another student saw that and thought he was going to do a silhouette too, and he got in, not trouble, but told, no, you need to go back and do more. He's like, I guess he wouldn't normally accept silhouettes because they're too basic, but because mine was a collage, that was a part of the design. So it was like a whole bunch of things that worked together. But that was what it was for me. There were, I want to say about 7 students in that class. 8 under 10, I know that. There were not very many students in there. And it was great because it gave me the opportunity, like I had never painted in acrylics before, and while they didn't do anything to show us how, there were no tips like, oh, mix water, do this, do that. There was none of that. It was, here's the supplies, go paint something, figure it out, basically. And that's what the class was for me. I loved that class, and everyone, I mean, even though he would give us themes, Dennis Garcia was the name of the teacher, even though he would give us themes to paint on, you could do anything you wanted, like the transparent thing. Most classes, the teacher would be like, okay, it's class, we're painting these glasses and bottles. I liked that he didn't limit us to that we got to use our imagination and paint things that we were interested in. And I definitely progressed a lot more in that year of being in that class than I did for my previous years of just kind of being on my own drawing. Jody says, and watch that you guys are highlighting the name. I would have just scrolled through this and happened to see my name, Lisa. And if you don't have the yellow or the orange highlight, the @Lachri Fine Art, I don't really normally see your questions. But Jody says, when you use the sanded paper with a powder blender, do you prep the sanded paper with the powder blender first, or do you go right into colorant? Because I'm using my polychromos, I don't need to put the powder blender down first. I can just go straight on with the colored pencil and then put powder blender on top of that. Just scrolled past too far. Why do you keep doing this to me, chat? I don't have another USB outlet, so I can't do it. But I need a mouse that I can scroll through this because that's what's causing me this skip. Let's see. Barbara Lovelace says, thank you very much. I also first tried it on the incorrect paper. Yeah, it makes a big difference. And that's why I try to show you guys using powder blender on regular paper versus sanded or gestoed paper. It's so different. Christine Marie says, I'm an oil painter, recently got into colored pencil. I've used all the products you suggest, but still get grain. Is it possible to be too picky being used to oils? It's more likely that you just need more practice. The grainy, gritty look, that took me a while to really learn how to avoid and when to go ahead and let it show, because sometimes that grainy, gritty look will give you a texture that you want, and you want to be able to use that to your advantage. But that, you probably just need more practice with layering, and the paper that you're using can make a big difference. But if you say you're using the supplies I use, that's probably not your issue. More layers. Light layers. If you're working with odorless mineral spirits, do not push hard. Light layers and lots of layers on top of each other. You know, get 3, 4, 5, 6 layers on there. Blend with your odorless mineral spirits, let it dry, and then do the same. And with each additional time of blending with odorless mineral spirits, when you get several layers, blend with odorless mineral spirits, each time you kind of cycle through that, it should get less and less grainy. And you can do this enough times that you have no grain. If you're burnishing, if you're burnishing too early on, that can actually start causing grain that you can't get rid of easily. So be careful of that where you're pushing very hard. It damages the tooth of the paper, so you're just kind of stuck with what you have. So that is probably what's going on. But you can get them to be as smooth as oils. It takes practice. That's going to take you a bit to get used to. So Yanti wants to see the sketches I did from last night's storm. I showed you, that was what I held up in that art book a little bit earlier, the little landscape. You may have to back the stream up a little. It was just the simple little landscape. Tony says, what is your stance on the controversial painting of Emmett Till? I know nothing about that, so I have no stance. My stance is weak. Sarah says, do you completely lose the tooth of the canvas with the pouring medium? It seems like it's really thick paint. Yeah, pretty much. I can see a little bit on some, just little teeny, almost dimples, but not really, barely. But yeah, it pretty much smooths out completely, especially if you do a couple layers like I have a tendency to do. Cartier wants to know what I recommend for gesso for acrylic painting. All the supplies I use, I have over on my website supply list, but I use one by Liquitex. Shauna wants to know if I've ever been a part of an art gallery show before. Yes, I've done several of them. Not in a long time, though. Well, no, I mean, well, it's not an art gallery. It's the Art in the Atrium through the city of Frisco. Let's see. David wants to know Horde or Alliance. Horde. I'm an adult. Adults play Horde. Guessing Druid. No, Holy Priest. I am a healer. And Blood Elf. Because they're cute. I mean, I have pretty much every single, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, it's a World of Warcraft thing. I have pretty much every class out there, but the only one, I don't even have any of my alts leveled. I've been like having so much fun with what, well, part of it is that I just haven't had time, but I had so much fun with the new expansion with my priest that that's all I've really played. Even I started the Demon Hunter and she's only like 104. Excuse me. Faye says, do you have any tips on how I can make skin look smoother in my acrylic paintings? Also, do you have any tips on painting paler skin? Painting paler skin, I really can't, well, I'm not sure what you're looking for there, but for painting skin with acrylics, I need to do a tutorial on that one of these days. I normally don't like acrylics for portraits because it's so much easier to do in oils, but just because of the dry time. But it can be done and it can look just as good. The way that you want to do that is through lots of glazing. Get your base layer, do that wet into wet, get everything blended out, your lights and your darks. And I do it as like this, where you start with your raw umber, your unbleached titanium white, just get your highlights, your lights and your darks that way, and then glaze the color on top of that. You're going to get skin that looks very much more realistic, I think, than just trying to paint the right color in the right place and blend it out. But glazing would be my answer to that. John Paul wants to know the largest painting I've ever done. I worked on some murals for the LA County Fair back in, I want to say it was 2000, and I could be wrong on that, but it was something like 10,000 or 1,000. I don't know. At that point, what difference does it make square feet? It was a lot. We did the backgrounds for several of their exhibits. I painted a lot of palm trees. Besides that, for like paintings on canvas, I've got some, what are these? The canvases were 36 by 48s, I believe. And then, of course, I painted many murals. I used to do that. That was actually a big way I made money for a very long time, were murals in homes, where the entire wall, or even the ceilings, I painted lots of those. And I don't have any photos of those anymore. Okay. So you can see how I'm just building and I'm overlapping the fur. That's a really big deal too, that it's not, you don't want to just do this. This doesn't look like fur. See how I'm just doing individual lines all over? That's not going to look like fur. I've got to make clumps and clusters and build those clumps and clusters of fur. Also notice that I'm letting the brown show through. That is basically shading for me. It makes it so much easier. I don't want to just put white everywhere. I need lights and darks of everything on here. Bridget says, yes, do an acrylic tutorial on skin. I will do it on or add that to my to-do list. I'll probably do that fairly soon because it is something that is so requested. I'm up against a wooded area, and listening, now that the trees are all in bloom, listening to the trees, the wind blow through them. Oh, it sounds so pretty out there. It makes me so happy and want to paint, which is why it's open and I'm dealing with allergies because of it. I had a couple more questions come through on email that I missed. Let's see. From Google, it's coming through on Google Plus. Janet wants to know if the storms affected how I feel with my fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis, and fibro, and can't hardly hold my pencils today. I swear I can never tell you are feeling poorly. Is there one medium you just can't do if you're in a flare? Pencil. If my arthritis is in a flare, graphite or colored pencil gets to where it's really hard to hold. I don't notice a big difference in how I feel with the arthritis when it comes to weather. I notice it by my diet, and because I am so strict on my diet, although I've been cheating, I keep eating these flaxseed muffins, which have more carbs than I should be eating. So I've been feeling that. And then I had a Chipotle bowl that had rice in it, a veggie bowl that, yeah, that's a lot of carbs. So the carbs are what I will notice. I mean, if you're having a hard time with, getting texts from friends that are popping up. If you're having a hard time with your arthritis, one of the biggest things, it made a big difference for me, and it's made a big difference for enough people that I would say it'd be worth giving a try and seeing if it helps you, because it's not like you're trying something that drastic. Try cutting out most of the carbs and sugar from your diet and artificial sweeteners. Oh my gosh, if I have that, not only do I get the instant like bad headache, but that used to cause a lot of problems, like gum, because gum all has that fake sugar. So I can use gum now, or chew gum that has xylitol, but not aspartame or whatever the other one is that they use. Those cause a lot of problems for me. But I found that what I'm eating has a lot to do with it. So that may be something that could help you. Give that a try. Barbara Lovelace says, I miss trees. Where are you at, Barbara, that you don't have trees yet? Or I'm going to guess up north somewhere. Are your trees bald? It's funny, Janet, the other thing that you had commented on is you said that you can't tell when I'm having a flare up or I'm having pain. It's because I talk fast. And it's funny because that was such a huge problem, and convincing doctors that there was something wrong. Because I would try to tell them I'm so tired, like painfully tired. It's a problem. It makes it really hard to function. And even now, I finally learned over the years, the only way I can function to get the work done that I need to, I have to take a 1 to 2 hour nap every single day. If I don't take that nap, I may as well not even try to work. And that's even if I sleep 8 hours the night before. I require a lot of sleep, but the problem is I talk fast. And because of that, the doctors associate talking fast with energy. Those two things, not even close to being connected. So that was always a problem. I had a few doctors that I had, well, I still don't have respect for them for many reasons, but there were a few of them that were so, like, the way that they would write me off is just like, I'm making it up. There's no way you're tired. And it's like, you don't understand. I could lay down on the floor right now and I will be out. No way, like, nothing's going to keep me awake. That's how much of a problem it was. And they wouldn't take it serious enough to check for anything. And this is before I knew I had celiac disease. So that was a huge part of the problem. My immune system was just not good. I was always sick. So, which is kind of part of the thing that makes me irritated with those doctors, is it's like I had all of those symptoms and they never even considered testing me for that. But anyway, yeah, so that's why you can't tell when I don't feel well usually, is just because I talk fast. And it's funny that the other thing is that I'm generally really happy, like disgustingly so. So that makes it appear that I feel great, even if I don't. Jennifer says that she has fibro also, and that I really inspire her. Oh, thank you. I definitely notice a difference with artificial sweeteners and sugar. I can't have the artificial sweeteners either. Try to, one of the two biggest, I would say, other things that made a difference for me, potatoes and rice. I can have sweet potatoes, cannot have regular, like real potatoes. Oh, I feel it in my knees first, usually. It's bad, and then it spreads to my back and everywhere else, but it's always that first. But I noticed the other day, too, I had Pepsi. It's my favorite thing in the world, and it's so sad to me that I can't just live off of that. But I had Pepsi the other day. We went to this tamale place, and they had Pepsi on their fountain thing, which is like the best thing ever. And so I cheated and had that. Oh, I was feeling pain. Like, I mean, just touching my arms, the pain all over. It sucked. But the nice thing is, I will say now, when I first found out about fibromyalgia, or even before I was diagnosed, I had a really hard time at first because I didn't know what necessarily was causing the pain, and I didn't know how to control it. And once I finally figured out what a difference my diet had in it, that there was no medication that was helping me, the diet, I had to control it the hard way and by what I ate, it made it easier. So even now, like when I cheated with Pepsi the other day, it was like, okay, yeah, it hurts, but I know why it hurts, so it's not as scary, and I know it's going to go away in a couple of days. So that definitely made a difference for me. Rachel says, what are some tips for an artist who wants to sell their work? eBay. I recommend start off with eBay. You can set up an Etsy store too. I had better luck with eBay. Etsy is just the way it's set up. You get lost in the crowd a lot more. But set up eBay. You can sell a certain, like, I think you can have up to like 50, and they may have changed it. But last I checked, you could have about 50 listings, auction style listings a month, and for free. So even if it doesn't sell, you're not out anything. But eBay is a really good way to get started. And then you can put ads, you know, have your website. And I think that's really important. If you want people to take you and your artwork seriously, you need to have a website. And by have a website, I don't mean DeviantArt. I don't mean Fine Art America. I don't mean Facebook. Those aren't your website. Those are platforms. Those are all social media platforms. And then with Fine Art America, they say, you know, what I have, the membership, I pay like $35 a year so I can have more images. But you have their website and your domain name. I think I'm Lachri.artist or artist. I don't even remember what my thing is there. They try to make it sound like it's your own website. It's not a website. It's not your website. You are not in control of it. It's their platform. I'm not saying those are bad things. I'm saying those aren't what I'm talking about. You need an actual website where people can go, they can look up information about you. So let's say you have a painting on eBay and people want to look up who that artist is and get more information about you, and they do a Google search and they can't find a website. Like, you know, they're not going to be as willing to invest money into an artist that they don't know anything about. And having that website, yeah, you can put information about you in the listing on eBay, which I do recommend, but that website is just a really, really big deal. I cannot stress that enough. So those would be my two like first steps to get started, is get that website going. Even if you do a free one through like Weebly or Wix, get that going. And then I recommend WordPress though. Love my WordPress site, which I really need to do some updates on, but they're easy to do. I just need to find some time. Get that going and start listing on eBay, and start listing your listings from eBay onto Facebook and onto your other social media, and let people know what you have there. Don't spam them, because you'll get people that stop following you because it's too much, but you can get started that way. I think it's a really good way to get started. And then, you know, check local art galleries. Some of them will cater. If you're just starting to sell, I'm going to assume you're a new artist who doesn't have a lot of following, you know, a huge fan base yet, then try some galleries that focus on young artists, on new artists. You may be able to get some sales that way too. Even coffee shops. I used to display my work in coffee shops, in Upland, California and Pomona, California, were like the area that I had a lot of stuff, or that I would participate in events and stuff. So you can do that as well. Scrolling down. Dominique Design says, I know what you mean. If I put makeup on or go to the doctors, they assume I'm fine. I don't listen to anything they have to say because I put makeup on. It makes myself feel better. I know. Yes, exactly. And if I don't put makeup on, the funny thing is, even if I'm feeling fine that day, if I don't put on makeup, everyone instantly thinks I'm sick. My friends will see me and go, oh my gosh, are you feeling okay? Because I'm so pale and I'm blonde. So I have blonde eyelashes. So I look like I have no color anywhere. I look very, very, well, I look like a half-dead vampire, like Buffy and I got into an argument. So that was a problem too, because I always put makeup on too. The same reason, I feel better if I have it on, but then the doctors were like, oh, you're not pale, everything looks good on you. No, but sick or not, I'm pale, so I guess that isn't the best way to determine. Valerie says, I can hide my lupus and fibromyalgia flares from others. My back is where I feel it first. Yeah, see, I'm having problems with my back right now, too, not just from my diet. I'm an idiot and decided last night, oh, I'm only going to be sketching in my sketchbook for a couple minutes. I can sit on the floor and hunch over and paint this way. Yeah, it was a terrible idea. My back is angry at me today. Barbara Lovelace says, Las Vegas, the desert. Oh, yeah, you don't have the trees. I miss the critters and the weathers and real grass. Antique house built with brick, wood crumbling architecture. By the way, I empathize with celiac. I have Crohn's. Oh, I'm sorry. And I'm sorry you don't have the trees. California, we have, like, in Southern California, we have trees. It's not the same as what you have in Texas. I love here. Although I do love the palm trees in Southern California. That I miss. We don't have too many of those here. Kirsty Jones says, Joan says, I'm from Australia and I have never been able to watch a live stream because of the time difference. So very excited. Hi from Australia. Hello. Welcome. Kimberly Dickerson says, celiacs and autoimmune. I've been struggling with back pain. I didn't even think of the potatoes and rice. Yeah, try that. Like with dinner, I have salad instead of a potato. Because you get in the habit of, like, you're supposed to have potato or rice or that carb with all your dinners. Or bread. Oh my gosh, that's a big one. If you try that, and usually within a week or so, I feel much better when I get those out of my diet. But like lately, I keep cheating and getting rice in my Chipotle bowls. I do better if I get beans instead of rice, but I've been bad. I need to stop with that myself. John Paul says, which artist do you most like to paint and learn? Whoops, that just scrolled by. Oh, man. Okay, paint and learn with, living or dead. For me personally, I don't watch too many artists. Jason Morgan, because I love his technique. I love the way he paints his fur. I love a lot of the way that he works. John By Fine Art. I don't really watch tutorials much. I just like looking at their work. It just inspires me. Who's another one? Oh, the name is just totally skipping, and that will come to me later. But there's another one, Brian Holland. Love his style. And it's not that I'm really learning from them. I'm just inspired by them, and I like some of the ideas they use, and it gets me thinking, well, what if I did this instead? What if I like the colors in their painting. I want to do something with those colors, that sort of thing. April Rains, or These April Rains says, can a blog double as a website, or should those two be separate things? Well, you can have a blog on your website. Like before, you used to have WordPress, which was just a separate standalone blog. That's no longer the case. Now with a WordPress website, it's an actual website with your static pages, like your homepage, all of those real pages. But a blog by itself, still, I would say if it's just the blog, no, that's not really a website either. You want something where you can have a section of samples of your artwork all together where people can easily see your work. They can easily see your prices. They can easily see what you have for sale. They can easily find your about page. There are certain things that need to be very, very easy for them to find. And a blog, that's not upfront and that easy to do. Paul Hunter says, it took over 50 years for a doctor to figure out that my knees and elbows bent too far the wrong way, but they did try to figure out what was wrong and didn't just ignore me. Well, that's good. I feel like when you go to now I don't go to doctors. I don't really do Western medicine much now. I mean, unless I break something or I need to be stitched up, I would have to, if I try to cut off my hand, then I'm going to have to go to the doctors. But mostly, I have to wonder because it seems like before, a long time before, doctors spent more time with their patients and spent more time listening to them. And it's like now you're in and out so quickly that they don't really listen to, like you're halfway through your sentence of telling them what your complaint is and they're already diagnosing you. And it's like, wait, no, that's not how that is. Like they had given me stuff for hypothyroid. It turned out I was actually hyperthyroid, and the hypothyroid stuff made it so much worse. But it's like they didn't, yeah, they're I don't go that long story. Point is, it seems like it's harder to get doctors to really pay attention. Like even my mom, we know we have ankylosing spondylitis. I just said that wrong. With our back, it runs in my family. Her doctors don't appear to know this. And I keep telling them, like, why aren't you telling them? Like, have them double check that if she's going for constant treatment because of her back and neck being as severe as it is. And it's gotten really bad. And it's like they're worried about it and trying to treat her for this type of arthritis and that. I'm like, they're not checking for, why is that not even coming up? Which is, she's just being pushed in and out so quickly that they're not really going over what the actual problem is. Oops, just scrolled past too much again. Oh, why did you scroll? There we go. Okay, a little bit further. Christine Marie says, type 1 juvenile diabetic here, so I sympathize. I don't know how you do it all. Thank you for being such a giving artist. Well, this is all I do, and I take naps. That's how. Christy Jones says, a little off topic, but I have a quick question about prints. Do you sign your artwork before you make prints, or do you sign each print separately after? Well, when I used to sell prints that were signed and numbered, then I would have them printed, have the prints sent to me, and then I would sign and number them. So there were 2 signatures on the prints. When I stopped doing that, because I don't have time to ship stuff, like it's time is if you can't tell, serious issue for me. When I stopped having time for that and I started just using Fine Art America, I don't come in contact with them. So all my artwork is signed, and even on the print, the artwork is always signed. But those are definitely signed first because I'm not coming in contact, so I'm not signing them myself by hand. Kimberly Dickerson says, holy cow, my wolf is coming out amazing as I follow along. I think I need a copy of your tutorial calendar, please, so I can plan accordingly to my projects. I don't even know what I'm going to do. Like, I have no idea what next week is. None at all. I know it won't be acrylic because this week's acrylic and I try to rotate. I need to get a couple of projects done. It may be pouring medium, which is sort of acrylic. I don't know. I need to get a couple of projects that are a little bit faster to do or smaller so I can get ahead because I've been so behind lately and I've gotten to a point where I keep doing these big projects like that deer. That one should have been a 2-week project and I smushed it into 1 week. And then the clownfish took forever and I've not had a day off in well over a month. I can't remember the last time I had a day off, but I've been behind and there's so many other things I need to get caught up on. So I know it needs to be something so that I can do kind of fast. I just don't know what that's going to be yet. But I usually let you guys know what's coming up. If you're not already signed up for my email newsletter, I usually will let you know, what's this week and what's coming up next week. So you can kind of plan that way. But that's about as far in advance as I typically know. Oops, scrolling. I just passed through a question again. Anthony says, I'm not being family friendly. I'm painting a nude wolf. You don't know that. It's only his head. I mean, I could put a hat on him still. You don't know what's going to happen yet. And you don't know what's back here. He's probably wearing a dress. Moonram says, if you're interested, I can say, let's see, with health issues. Moonram, email me. Let's see. Mara Black says, do you find most of your subjects facing left like mine, even your wolf? No, they're pretty even. As I look around my room at what's currently hanging, they're pretty even on both sides. It largely depends on the reference photo I'm using. Moonram wants to see a water-soluble graphite live stream. Oh, that's a good idea. I should do one of those. Anthony Cassidy said, did you ask any of the companies at the art convention why they have so many yellow in their colored pencil sets? I did not. Bridget says, you are making the fur come alive. I can nearly touch it. And you haven't even started on the glazing yet. The glazing, oh my gosh, you won't believe the difference. So even here, like I've lost some of my shadow. This is going to need to be a lot darker in certain areas. That'll all be done in the glaze. Doesn't even matter. Like, it's so amazing. I can't wait for you guys to see the full video where you can see what happens when I glaze over this. Jody said earlier you mentioned artificial sugar that you used. You use xylitol. Did I understand? It's xylitol with an X is what it's like in the gum and certain foods. Don't let your pets have it though. Extremely toxic to dogs and cats. Syra Lewis says, do you have a canvas vertical, flat, or horizontal? How big is the canvas? How many layers of wood would you put on it? Layers of fur. Sorry. How many layers of fur would you put on it? This is an 18 by 24. It is, I'm working, it's portrait or landscape. So it's going this way. I'm working upright on an easel because my back does not allow for me to look down. And I think, was that all the questions? And how many layers would I put on it? There's no limit. I can layer until I get it to where I like it. I'm going kind of slow right now because it's a live stream. Normally I would have a lot more filled in by now. This is actually not that fast, or I'm sorry, that slow of a process. I'm just kind of making it slow. Faye wants to know if I have ever experimented with digital art. If so, what did you like about it or not like? I love the undo button. I actually like digital art. I do work in that occasionally. I have worked in it enough that I feel fairly competent in it. It took a few pieces before I got to that point. It was a little bit of a learning curve. But once I got to that point, I mean, it's very similar. The way that you layer, the way that you look at your lights and your darks to how you would normally work in other mediums. The big thing is just learning the way that you pull up colors, the way that you change it, basically learning the program that you're using. Once you get that down, it's very, very similar. If you're using something like a Wacom tablet, or when I first started, I was working on my Samsung Galaxy Note tablet. Now I have the Wacom tablet that I will draw on. Anthony wants to know what kind of a wolf dress the wolf would wear. Obviously pink with lace. I'm surprised you don't already know that. That seems pretty obvious to me. And leggings underneath, so if he bends over, you can't see his butt. Dennis says, do you have any specific goal in life with art? Just to create it and to be happy. I mean, I want to make a living. I need to pay my bills. That is a definite goal. But, I don't know. I think just to continue being able to afford to do this as a living, to continuously paint. And I mean, being able to teach, the more people I can teach, the better. I love that I can help other artists achieve what makes me so happy, to get to a point where you guys can make this as your living if you choose to, or even if it's just as a hobby, something that you do for fun. I want to reach as many people and teach them how to do that as possible because I know how happy it makes me. And so I want other people to experience that too. Kirsty, gosh, I keep saying that wrong. Jones says, where do you sign and number your prints? When you get prints, scroll down. When you get prints done, they leave a border around the artwork. I feel like if I signed it there, it would get covered up when I get it signed. You know, everybody does it differently. Most professional prints, they intentionally leave a good amount of a white border for the artist to sign and number. And when you frame it, you leave the white border showing. Most people do. For me, I signed on the artwork, but I think I like it how it looks better with that white border showing through. Picks by Elise says, have you ever used other Wacom tablets without the screen where you can see the image? I have two. I have my original one where you can't see the image, you're just drawing on the thing, and that is nearly worthless to me. I need to be able to see where I'm drawing. And then I've got, I forget what model mine is. Where is mine? I haven't used it in a while. I don't remember what model mine is. But I've got one where you actually do draw on the screen. Or where you can see what you're drawing on the screen, I should say. Clarice says, do you have any tips for adding shadows? I'm doing a polar bear coming out of a frame and its head is turned, paw hanging over. The deer is awesome. Tips on doing shadows, glazing. I mean, what you're going to see me do next week, I think is going to make, it'll make it easier for you to understand. But you can even look at my other video on glazing grapes. It would be the same. For shadows, it depends on what colors are around it. Is there a lot of blue? Then the shadows would probably have blue tones in them, or similar color. It depends. I mean, I can't say without knowing what else, without seeing it, but glazing is how I would do the shadows. Nameless Winter says, when did you start painting with acrylics? In 1995. No, 1994. Maybe it was 95. I don't know. Sometime back then. It was a long time ago. David Rooks says, have you ever done limited run prints? Say only 50 available in each number. Does this make the price appear more sought after, or the piece appear more sought after than it really may be? What do buyers think? Yes, all of mine, when I printed my signed and numbered, they were all limited edition. I think I had 250, a run of 250. And they do make them worth more because there's only 250. When you've got a limited run, that does make anything. I mean, when someone can't get more of something, then that item becomes worth more. So yeah, absolutely. Switch the direction of the fur a bit here. Again, if you guys, you can get this wolf from wildlifereferencephotos.com. I don't have an actual link. You just look up wolf over at their website. But the techniques that I'm showing you here can be used on any wolf. Like this is how I would draw fur on a tiger. This is how I would draw or paint fur on different dogs. I mean, right now he kind of looks like a Malamute, or well, sort of a Siberian Husky. But these techniques in layering the fur can be done on any animal with fur. Just notice how I'm clumping and clustering the fur, how I'm overlapping, changing directions, paying attention to the direction based on the reference photo. Rachel says, why did you choose to sell prints from Fine Art America instead of other art sellers? I don't remember. I've been with them for so long. I honestly do not remember. I know I would have researched to make sure they had a good reputation. I don't remember why that's where I started, but I've been happy with them, so I've just stayed. Kirsty Jones says, I saw a colored pencil video of yours a little over 2 years ago. After having about 8 years break from art, I now own a full set of Prisma Polychromos and Luminance. That's awesome. Linda says the screen is going blurry on and off. Let me see. I should have this. I changed it. Maybe it didn't save. I turned off autofocus. That seems to be the thing that usually causes that to happen. Let me double check that that is still off. Maybe I didn't save it. No, it's off. So there's not really anything else, unfortunately, I can do about that. I apologize. It may be trying to auto something else. I don't know. Patty Picasso says, I love the 90s. I love 90s music, like Pearl Jam. I still occasionally, actually Eddie Vedder, he has some newer songs that I love. He's still awesome. Christy Jones says, my partner doesn't understand why I need so many pencils. See, you do what I did. I married a comic book nerd who has so many comics that we moved from California to Texas. I had to get rid of all my furniture to make room, except for my futon. I kept that to make room for all his comic books. And we had to have a larger size moving truck in order to get all those comic books here. It was bad. It was so bad. So he does not give me crap at all about how many or how much I need of stuff. Like my orchid addiction. The other day we were at the grocery store and I don't have room. Like half of these are going to have to go outside and I don't know where I'm going to have to drag them all back in next winter. When they're out of bloom, I'll put them outside, or when the blooms are done. But I was at the grocery store and I'm holding my new one, actually taquito noodles, the one I just talked about in today's video. I'm holding that, or it's in the cart and I'm looking at it going, okay, seriously, no more after this. I just don't have the space for more orchids. And he looks at me and he goes, I understand. I feel the same way about comics. So, you know, he really doesn't question comics and video games. He's constantly buying and getting new stuff of, or looking for something that he can't find. So he does not at all ever give me crap about how many of any of the art supplies that I have. It works out well because he can't. With the whole comic book thing, he definitely cannot. Hannah Williams says, if acrylics didn't exist, what would be your favorite medium? Ooh, hard one. Either oils or colored pencil, I would say. I love colored pencil, but even at its fastest, it's still a fairly slow medium. I think that if that's all I used, I would get frustrated, and oils I can work much quicker. So probably somewhere between those two. Hannah, okay, that was that question. Mara Black says, what will you use to give his nose the wet look? Will you do the same for his gums and line? I don't necessarily need it to look wet. I just need it to look shiny. I will put a bit of blue in that, and it's just the way that I'm going to glaze. It's how I'm going to glaze will be the way that I get that look. The colors that I end up glazing, and then the highlights. Basically, what I'll end up doing is just put little sparkles, little dots of the highlights anywhere that needs to be shiny, which really will just be here. This is all in shadow. John Paul says, when I paint with acrylic, they dry darker and dull. Am I doing something wrong, or is this the nature of acrylic paint? Okay, if you're using Liquitex Basics, the color is not changing. This seems to be a common thing, and I don't the color doesn't change. It looks different wet because of the way that the light is shining through. When you glaze, or not glaze, when you apply your varnish, use a gloss varnish, it is going to look exactly how it did when you painted it on there because it looks wet again, basically. So it's not changing color. There's no color. I hear that all the time, that there's this huge color shift when it dries. The only color I've ever seen a really, noticeable color shift on are certain teals and aqua colors. Besides that, it's dull, yeah, because of the way that the light is hitting through it. But once you put the varnish, the light hits through it differently, and now it's really bold and vibrant like it looked when it was wet, if that makes any sense. But the color itself, it's not changing. It's just once you varnish it, problem solved. But use a gloss varnish will do that for you. My tip, though, when you varnish, make sure that you get all of the photos you want. If you're using a gloss varnish, make sure you get all of your photos for prints done first, because once you get that gloss varnish on there, it is so difficult to get a good photo of because the light is like bouncing around all over and you've got the reflections, and it makes it a bit of a challenge. It can be done, but it's not easy. Now, I will say some acrylic paints, like Blick, they have their brand of acrylic paints. Those do tend to color shift. I have seen some of those, but like Liquitex Basics, the only thing that people are experiencing when they say that there's a color shift is just the difference. That's what paint looks like when it's dry, but once that varnish is over, it's such a huge difference in the color going back to looking just like wet paint. So it's not really changing, and it's just not shiny anymore. Dominique says that she has a deal with her fiance. He's a mechanic, and if he gets new tools, she gets new art supplies. Good deal. See, that's what we do on Sundays. Usually we run out and he picks up his comics and drops me off at, well, depending on which comic book store he goes to. He used to go to a comic book store that was right by Azel Art Supply, so he could just drop me off there. I could shop while he went across the street and got his comics. That was nice. Dominique says that I'm making her want to get out of bed and start another wolf. But I'm doing it right. This is, I mean, the way that I'm working, it's time consuming, but it's, you don't really have to think that hard about it. Like when I'm not here talking to you guys, I will be on, or I'll have an audiobook going, or I could even watch Netflix if I wanted to. I mean, this is pretty basic. I'm not having to make a lot of thought. I'm only using, I mean, all you've seen me use today is unbleached titanium white. Just for building up the texture here, or the fur texture. And some of this is getting to the point, like here is looking a little stringy. So I'll show you what I can do to tone that. Now, part of it is going to get toned down just by glazing anyway. But I can take another brush on anywhere that's starting to be a little bit more, little bit too stringy, and just kind of work over that a little bit. Actually, this brush is finally getting damaged enough. It's working as a rake like it's supposed to. These brushes are best, the rake brushes work best when they're damaged, when the paint has built up at that barrel. But when using a rake brush to create fur, I do not recommend doing it for everything. It's a fast way to get fur marks, but if you're not careful, everything looks too uniform. So I'm kind of holding mine to the side and using it more like I would a flat filbert, or like a filbert that's in good condition. But see how I'm kind of going over some of these. So you can still see the individual hairs, but they don't look as stringy when I do this. Clarence wants to know if Liquitex Basics are considered to be archival. Yeah, they just because they're listed as student grade, they basically just don't have as much pigment as the soft body or the heavy bodied paints. I like them because of the finish they have, and the amount of pigment they have works perfect for how I layer and glaze. But yeah, they're just as archival as the other paints. Dominique said she's going to share her Fox and Wolf on our Facebook group in a few minutes. Yay! Eric Draws wants to know what I watch on Netflix. I just finished watching Iron Fist. And that one was weird for me because as much as I enjoyed it, I also recognized, holy crap, this is the worst writing for one of these shows. Like, Daredevil was so good, and Iron Fist at the end, you're like, wow, everything bad that happened is because of your poor decision-making skills. Like, you left Kunlun, and for what? You just, like, kind of screwed them over. So it's hard for me to connect to a character who, like, I don't know, I'm just kind of there's so much about that show that I was just like what's her name? Oh, Colleen, is that her name? I keep getting their names mixed up. But she stays to eat with them. She just like invites herself to eat. Like it's obviously a more romantic dinner and she's going to, hey, I'm going to sit and eat with you. And it was just awkward and uncomfortable. And there were so many things in that show that I was like that. It wasn't, I don't know, I had fun watching it, but it also was just like, wow, this was not written as well as some of the others. I just scrolled too far again. There we go. Mara says, your unbleached titanium white actually looks white. Is it the lighting? My Liquitex unbleached titanium white heavy body looks like a tan color. Did I get the wrong paint? No, you have the right paint. This is because of the lighting in here and the exposure. It's the same paint that you, well, not the same paint as you have. Your paint is thicker than what mine is, but the color is the same. It's like a cream color. Faye wants to know if I knew who Bob Ross is. Obviously, who doesn't know who Bob Ross is? He's awesome. I love Bob Ross because even though his style isn't how I paint, he did so much for the art. Like I know so many artists who are amazing who got started because of the beginning lessons that Bob Ross teaches. Like I have so much respect for what he did and how many artists that he got involved because he made things, he taught in a way that made things not seem scary. It was very easy by using his methods to create a very pretty painting. So I have so much respect for what he did. And he really, I mean, people will kind of talk crap about that his work, you know, it's not going to win you any awards, but it got people who do win awards started. He made a big difference, and I think he has had a huge impact on the art world because of how many people picked up that paintbrush just because of his lessons. I love Bob Ross for that. And scroll too much. The Art of Joseph Fisham is mad about spoilers. You could have watched it. And I didn't give any spoilers away. I did not say anything about what actually happened on anything. I'm not that big of a jerk. Emily says, I want some Liquitex basics, but my mom said they were too expensive. Get a... if you've got an art store near you, like Hobby Lobby, and you've got a 40% coupon, go in with your mom and both of you use that coupon, get a tube of black and a tube of white. That's all you need to start. Just work on black and white paintings. It does not cost that much to get started if you do work that way. Brianna wants to know if there is a, or, I'm sorry, Brianna wants to know if there is a hashtag we can use to tag our work we do during the live stream. Lachri live stream? That's a long hashtag. I don't know. What do you guys think? Lachri live? Do Lachri live. That would actually work, and we can all do that search and find what artwork you guys did. That's fun. Yes. Do a hashtag Lachri live, all one word, and then we can all see all of the work all of us did. If you post it on Twitter or Instagram, we can easily search that and see whatever work was created. That's fun. Good idea. I think that I'm going to start using that. I'll put a mark on future videos, a thing to tag so we can look it up. That is such a great idea. I love you for that. David says, you paint a lot of fish whales, etc. Can you paint a Norwhale soon? They're the Jedi of the sea, you know. I have to get a good reference photo. Actually, I probably don't need that good of a reference, but I could just watch some videos and then freehand something. I may have to do that soon. Dominique says, I also love Bob Ross's paintings because they are of the world before man altered it. All of the nature and wild and how it's supposed to be. I had a lady who went off on me once because I was talking about Bob Ross and I was saying, you know, when he's great for getting started, but you don't want to limit yourself that way. I have other videos I've got coming up talking about that, not limiting yourself to beginner books. You don't learn very fast if you limit yourself to books for beginners. Start off with books for beginners, start off with Bob Ross, but after you get, you know, 3, 4, or 5 paintings under your belt, start jumping into more advanced lessons because you're going to learn a lot faster that way. Oh my gosh, this lady went off on me on how her and her son spend time painting Bob Ross and it's the most amazing thing in the world, and how dare I criticize him? I'm like, I didn't criticize him. He teaches for beginners. That's what he does. Anyone who thinks he's an advanced teaches advanced lessons is delusional. That's not what that is, but it was so funny. So every time that I mention Bob Ross, though, somebody gets offended that I'm not being kind enough to him or something, which is funny because I actually have so much respect for what he's done. I don't dislike Bob Ross in any way. Plus, he had fancy hair. I read an article, or somebody commented. How did I find this out recently? Somebody told me or something that the reason that Bob Ross had curly hair when he wanted to save money by not having to get the haircuts or something. So he permed his hair. It was some weird thing about that's like his hair didn't naturally grow that way. He actually had permed it. I don't know how true that was, but it's kind of funny if that's the case. But he was trying to save money at the time on haircuts. Now, as I use this rake brush to create some of these smaller fine hairs, I've got to continuously kind of turn it to different angles because I don't want to create too much of a definite pattern. And sometimes these rake brushes are more of a pain in the butt to get comfortable with than just using a liner brush. John Paul wants to know what my favorite art book is. I would say The Colored Pencil Painting Bible by Aliona Nicholson. That book is wonderful. Just the way she talks about lighting, the way that she talks about, and it's not just because I'm her friend now. I was a huge fangirl of hers forever because of the book. I love that for Colored Pencil. And another book that I really like, oh, who is it? It's Color and Light something. It has a dinosaur on the front of it. That one's a really good book for lighting and color and all of that. And I cannot remember. Somebody, if you want to mark in the comments who that author is, I can't remember. I can see the book, but I can't read the author from here. Yeah, Dominic said, yeah, he permed it and then it never grew back right. He actually hated it from what I heard. Yeah, that's what I read too, that he didn't like it. Rachel says, what kind of lighting and tripod do you use for your videos? The lighting I use, I've got an OttLight above me. I ended up having a floor OttLight that I put off to the side so that I get the 3-point lighting. And then here I have a big, it was on Amazon. I think I got it on Black Friday at one time. But they have the big studio lights for like photography. The big, I don't know if you can see it. Let me see. If you can see it. No, you can't. If you look at my video, my 360-degree video, you'll see a big light that's behind on top of that. I stick that on a tripod over here. It's really, really bright. And there's a name for it. I can't think of it right now. But those are the lightings that I use for the videos, like the intros and where I'm doing vlogs and stuff. When I'm recording videos just of the painting, I only use the OT light that's above me. I do have other OT lights on in the room, but they don't really help at all for the light here. Just the OT light that is clamped to my easel. And then the tripods I use, I've got one that's from Best Buy, a suit. I don't know what that one is. I've got my, I can't even read what that is off to the side. It's just a regular cheapy tripod. I've got a couple of those. They're not expensive or super fancy or anything. I use those for the webcams and for photos, but for recording, like right now, this is on a boom stand from, it's a heavy weight, which is really important. I want to say it's around 17, 20 pounds. You want to get a very heavy weight. If you're going to use a boom mic that holds up the camera like what I've got here, you need something that's heavyweight. And I like this because it allows me to have the arm come out and really get in front of the artwork. Before I used this, I used a regular tripod and I was at a weird angle where everything was off to the side. Because of me working upright, I can't just have it down like a lot of artists do. So, wow, that plane is loud. So having this, the boom mic, I've got to do an update on tech gear that I use. And I do have a video I'll be talking about it, and I'll have links to a lot of that. Just make sure if you do buy the boom mic to hold up your camera, that you get something that is very, very heavyweight. I knew that from being a musician and playing in bands. Those lightweight boom stands or boom arm like this, they droop so easily. They're constantly moving. You need something that's very heavyweight that's not going to tilt and that tightens really well. Yes, Pix by Lee says, Color and Light, a Guide for the Realist Painter by James Gurney Art. Yes, that is the person. Thank you. That's the other one of my favorite art books. Yeah, creator of Dinotopia. Love him. Thank you for looking that up. So see how I'm layering this on top of what I previously did? It's layer on top of layer on top of layer, and you end up creating this fur texture. If you just do one layer like this, I don't think it looks that much like fur. I think it looks like confetti. So by building up this way, I end up building what looks like soft fur in the end. And again, I will redo a lot of my shapes and a lot of my shadows once I start with the glazing. But the detail that I have here, the fur texture, look how, I mean, this is easy. I'm not color mixing. I'm not doing anything fancy. All I really have to worry about is how this texture goes. And it just makes it so much easier than trying to mix the right color for the right area as you work. Plus, I like the end result. Gina wants to know what a good beginner camera is to start with. If you mean for making videos, really, and a lot of artists will use DSLRs, or a lot of YouTubers, I should say. The problem that I had with most DSLRs is they like to turn themselves off after a certain amount of time, and I'm not sure what the workaround is for that, but it does end up being a bit of a problem. The other thing is that they get very hot, and that's not necessarily for us. Like, if I'm painting for 8 hours, I can't have that camera running for 8 hours. It's not meant to get as hot as it does. It doesn't necessarily handle it as well, so I wanted to go with a camera that was intended to be on for a bit longer. The other thing is this one doesn't turn itself off because it's an actual camcorder. And really, to get started, if you, like, let's say you're going to be making YouTube videos, you don't need the best camera equipment ever. Start with what you can afford. The camera that I used for years was it was under $200. It was by, I think, Samsung. And it did its job. It's not as good as this one, but it did its job. It got me to the point where I could, with Patreon, I built up enough of a fan base that I could set up Patreon and people signed up for that, and then I could take that money and buy the better camera. So I didn't start off with the best equipment, that's for sure. If you mean for taking photos of your artwork, a DSLR, absolutely. I really like Canon. I also have my old Nikon, and even my Nikon, I had the D3100. Not the best, fanciest DSLR in the world, but it did its job. My camera, now that I have the Canon 6D, that is amazing. That one, I'm so in love with, and I adore my friend for suggesting that because I was going to get a different one. That camera has been wonderful. But you don't have to start off with the best. Start off with what you can afford. When you're making prints of your artwork, though, I definitely recommend at least a decent DSLR. Canon or Nikon are going to be your best bets in most cases. And remember when oh, it's Eric Draw's birthday. Happy birthday. When you're shopping for a camera, one of the mistakes that a lot of people make is they think that the biggest pixels, you know, oh, it does 12, not pixels. Yeah, pixels. That is the right word, right? I'm getting tired. You can tell when it's towards the end of the live stream. Oh my God, I can't remember words. They're so hard. But having the largest, yeah, pixels. Somebody help me because I can't remember words. That is not what makes for the best camera. The lens, the sensor, those things matter so much more. So when you look at it and you're like, oh, this one takes 25, 24, 20 pixels, whatever. That doesn't mean that it's better than a DSLR that only does 12 at all. Don't be fooled by that number that makes it sound like I need the biggest number ever. You don't need the biggest number ever. That unless you're printing like prints for billboards, you really don't need that biggest number ever. But the DSLR, like my D3100, that was the one that I took photos of for years. It's expensive, but not super expensive compared to a lot of other DSLRs. And then, like I said, the one that I've got now, the 6D, I love. Megapixels. Is that what I'm wanting to say? Yes, somebody just answered for me. Thank you. It is megapixels. My brain is shutting down. Do you guys ever get to that point where you're so tired you forget words like refrigerator? Like that box that the food is in. It needs more food in it. Yeah, I'm at that point right now. See, I'm using this brush in several ways. I'm holding it sideways to get lines as thin as I could get with a liner brush. And then when I want a little bit, you know, several brush strokes to come out at once for bigger clumps of fur, then I can hold it this way. And this is the 1/4 Low Cornell filbert rake. It sucked when I first got it. This one has really taken me time. I basically used it as a filbert and then intentionally did a terrible job cleaning it so that I could damage it to start getting it to work like a rake. This is the first time I've ever used it and it worked well as a rake brush. Now I'm actually really liking where it's at. So now I need to make sure every time I use it, I clean it really well because this is exactly where I want it to be. But I've had this brush for a couple of years and it has never worked great for what I needed it to do until now. But see, just holding the brush, how you twist and turn it, you can get thick lines and thin lines. Pics by Lee says, I'm a wildlife photographer. Optics and a great sensor are the most important. Nikon all the way, better glass. Yeah, I mean, anything you get with Nikon, if you go with a DSLR, you're going to be safe. Same with Canon. I mean, you go with those guys, you know you're getting a good quality product. And while, yeah, they're not all created equally, it's way better. Like, the quality you're going to get from a DSLR is nowhere near what you're going to get from a point and shoot. Or the other way around. The point and shoot can't touch what a DSLR can do. Or a decent one, I should say. Rachel Murphy, actually we're at 10, so I'll go ahead and clean this up for right now and answer a couple more questions before we wrap this up. Rachel Murphy says, what is your process taking photos of for your prints, and why do you prefer this over scan of your artwork? If I scanned this painting, it's 18 by 24, I'm going to have to scan it in multiple pieces, and then I'm going to have to line it up, and I'm going to have to, it's a huge process, and I used to do that. I used to actually scan my work in multiple pieces. I have a 20, what size was that? 30 by 40 inch, took me over 50 scans that I had to line up and get perfect. And the result was beautiful in the end, but it was more than a day's worth of work to get everything Photoshopped together right. No, that's not okay for me. A DSLR, one good shot and I'm done. No work needed. I can get a good photo of any size that I need. That's going to give me better results. The other problem is not all scanners are created equally. The old scanner I had used to do a really, really good job of getting a good quality image of my work. The one I have right now is a Canon something. It costs more. It can't even touch what my old one used to be able to do, and you can't get the old. I mean, when I say old, it was probably like 15 years old. But the results that I get from the camera are just superior. If it's a small image, and even that, like if it's a small graphite piece, I usually have problems with the reflection of the graphite on the scan. Colored pencil, sometimes okay, sometimes not. I've had some weird things happen, especially with the scanner. It's terrible. But I definitely get the better results, and I have more control over the stuff that I take photos of with the DSLR. But before I had a DSLR, when I just had a point and shoot, I couldn't get photos good enough to make prints of. So I did the scans and stitched them together. It wasn't fun. Patty wants to know if I live beside an airport. Yes, very, very close. Pretty much on the airport runway, if you can't tell. It's funny, I've mostly gotten used to it. I don't really notice the airplanes going by so much, but every once in a while you'll get one that kind of shakes the building and you're like, oh, right, I forgot I lived this close to an airport. Felt like California again with the earthquakes. Pix by Elise says, what size do you make your digital canvas to create a digital painting? When I was working with my Samsung Note, I just used the largest option available. It was like 2400 by something, not huge. That one couldn't go as big. I don't remember off the top of my head because you're at the end of the live stream where I'm really tired and I don't remember things like words like megapixel. So I don't remember what I used on the Wacom tablet. I haven't done much on that actually. So I don't remember. I try to go as big as possible. Ghostique14 says, what is your best JPEG setting out of a raw photo? Again, end of the live stream. My brain is gone. You're asking about things that have to do with numbers, and my numbers and me aren't really good friends at the best of times. Me being kind of tired and loopy, definitely not the time. I don't remember. I am not sure. It's a lot. It's big. Let's see. I want to thank my moderators again, Joseph Fincham and Valerie. There's fire involved. Both of them, I've got links to their YouTube channels. Wow, I really have to wrap this up. I can't remember anything right now. I've got links to both of their YouTube channels in the video description. I honestly could not do this without them helping because you can see I have a hard enough time managing just answering questions and painting. Just thank you guys and thank you for joining, but thank you to the mods. Thank you guys for joining me here and listening to me stumble over my words. Mara wants to know if this is a red wolf. I don't know. I don't think so. Let's see. A couple more questions. Do I think that traditional art will be taken over by digital art? No, not even close. I think that digital art will hopefully become a little bit more accepted. It kind of irritates me when I see certain like Facebook groups that have photos for artists, or there are other websites out there with photos for artists, and they have a very strict rule, no digital art. And I'm like, it's still a painting. I mean, for one side, I can kind of understand because they don't want people just doing a photo manipulation and calling it artwork. Kind of can understand that, but if it's an actual painting, it's kind of silly to me because it's still artwork. So I think that digital art will start getting more respect as time goes on. I don't see it ever replacing it because you can't have an original, like this is an original one-of-a-kind painting. No one else is going to own this original. One person gets it. Whereas with digital art, you don't have that one original. You can do a limited edition run. You could just print one and not ever make any prints off of it. But with this, I can have the original and I can have prints, and the prints don't devalue the original. Whereas, you know, you've got a bit of a difference there when you come into digital art. And for that reason alone, no, I don't believe that it will ever take it over completely, but I do think that it will grow, and I hope to see more people realize that digital art is real art. It is a real painting. You know, I've done it. I know I'm using the same techniques, the same knowledge I have from painting this way, I apply to the digital paintings. It's not that different versus writing a book by hand and writing it by typing. It's two different ways, but the information that you're expressing is the same. So I think that we will see a time where more people accept that, and more artists, the more artists that use it and try it and realize what I realize, that it's just a different medium. I think you'll see more people respecting it. But again, I don't see that ever taking over completely. Have I ever painted a dinosaur? Not that I can think of. Maybe when I was a kid, but back then I was mostly horses and cows and rainbows, and occasionally whales. Yeah, Hughes says, I just moved to digital painting from oil painting because of studio space issues. See, and exactly. I mean, it's like me with books. I almost never buy hard copies of books. I have, the only reason, like the Colored Pencil Bible, I originally got that one digitally because I don't have space for it. But then when I had the opportunity to have a signed copy, I'll make space for that. But for the most part, I mean, all of my books, I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books, both audio and the Kindle version on my phone. And this is all the space they take. I don't have space in my studio for all the books that I want to have. So that is, I definitely can relate to you on that, on the amount of space it takes is so much less. And if you're limited on space, or people who have different allergies, digital's a great way to go. There are a lot of benefits to digital. And I'll answer a couple more questions. Just scrolling through here. Kirsty Jones says, I can't believe there's only 200 people watching this. The other 139K subscribers are missing out. They're probably sleeping like normal people. We're just really dedicated, the whole weird artist thing. And they can watch it later. They can definitely watch the replay. So that's one of the things I like so much about these live streams is that people are able to watch them after the fact. I mean, it's fun if you can be here because we can all chat and talk, but at least they don't completely miss out. Okay, so I'll go ahead and say goodnight because everyone else is saying goodnight. So I'll take that as a sign that I can go. I actually need to go walk my studio assistants. They will be forever grateful for that. Let's see. Oh, these April Rain says, reading digital is hard for me for some reason. Oh, I'm sorry. I would be so sad if I couldn't have all my hundreds. I mean, there are so many. If you guys, here's a tip for you guys. Go to freebooksy.com, FREEBOOKSY, I think, .com, and they will have a list of what Kindle books were free that day. And a lot of times it's like the first book in a series, so that if you like that first book, you'll end up buying the series. They have all the different genres, all kinds of different things, and that's one of the reasons. I mean, I go through, I've probably had thousands of books at this point. So many Kindle books because I got the first one, and it lets you kind of get a taste. Okay, I like this author, I want to buy their other books, or not. And I've read some great books that I found that way. But freebooksy.com, if you like to read and you've got your Kindle, I think it works for other apps too. Some Apple, something they have versions for through FreeBooksy. But, oh, it's wonderful. I love that website so much. And the great part with that too, there have been books that I downloaded for free, and now on the Kindle app, it actually shows you. I noticed this recently. I don't know if this is from the update or what, but it just doesn't open. So how's that for an update? Okay. Let's see. I just started reading another book. You have a thing where you can, I don't know if you can see this, it probably won't show on the screen, but you've got audio upgrades. And so all the books, I can click that and it'll list. There's 32 books that most of which got for free because I did the free Booksy thing. And now there are audio versions available and I can get the audiobook for $1.99. That's insane. I got the book for free and now I get the audio version for $2. So there's so many books in here that I was interested in but never got around to reading that I can now do the audiobook for really cheap. And that's because of the free Booksy site. This is not sponsored in any way. It's just a website that I get way excited about. Okay, so I'm done now. Seriously, this time I'm really leaving. I'll see you guys next week. I don't know what we're doing next week. I'll let you know. I should know within a couple hours of the live stream, I'd hope. I'll talk to you guys later, and I will be posting updates because I'm going to work on him a little bit more tonight. Hopefully I'll have some updates over on Instagram of the progress there. Good night.